Imagine you wake up one morning, walk outside, and parked in your driveway is something that looks like it materialized from 20 years in the future. The door handles are flush with the body, the headlights glow like something from a science fiction film, and when you open the app on your phone and the thing silently glides to life, you realize you're not looking at a Mercedes, you're not looking at a BMW, you're looking at something that cost a fraction of those cars, and in almost every measurable way surpasses them. Now imagine that in the United States, that car doesn't exist. It's effectively invisible, blocked, restricted, politically quarantined. But north of the border, people are already quietly bringing these in, and in 2026, that door just cracked open even wider. That is the reality we are living in right now. China has been building cars that Western automakers haven't wanted you to see. Not because they're dangerous, not because they're inferior, because they're cheaper, smarter, and more capable. And that is a deeply uncomfortable thing for the establishment to deal with. Today, we're going to talk about 6 of the most extraordinary vehicles sitting in Chinese showrooms right now that Canadian buyers can legally access, while most of the world watches from behind glass. 6 cars that, if you saw them parked in front of a hotel, you'd assume someone with serious money had just arrived. Let's start with context, because context matters here. In late 2024, Canada followed the United States and slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. It felt like solidarity. It felt like alignment. And then, in January 2026, Prime Minister Mark Carney flew to Beijing and came back with a deal. Canada is now allowing up to 49,000 Chinese EVs into the country at a tariff rate of just 6.1%. The quota grows every year, 70,000 units within 5 years. In exchange, China drops its duties on Canadian canola. It's a trade deal that the United States called problematic. The U.S. Transportation Secretary stood at a Ford factory in Ohio and said Canada would look back and regret it. And I think Canadians, sitting in their driveways next to a 1,000-horsepower sedan that costs less than a loaded Audi A6, might just shrug. In the United States, the picture is very different. Beyond the tariff walls, which were already punishing, the U.S. government rolled out connected vehicle cybersecurity rules in early 2025 that effectively create a technical barrier for most Chinese-made cars. The regulations target navigation systems, software stacks, and communications hardware that most Chinese EVs use as standard equipment. It's not just a tariff problem. It's a regulatory fortress. American buyers are, for all practical purposes, locked out. That's not an opinion. That's policy. But this isn't a political video. This is about the cars. So let's talk about the cars. The Zeekr 001. Start with this one because it earns it. Zeekr 001. When a brand with access to Volvo's engineering DNA, CATL's most advanced battery technology, and a Swedish design team decides to build something that doesn't look like any electric car on the road today, the result is a shooting brake, a body style so rare that most automakers abandoned it in the 90s. Zeekr 001 is factually the world's first mass-produced electric shooting brake, and they didn't just barely pull it off, they absolutely nailed it. Look at this thing from the outside, and it hits you immediately. The proportions are long, sculpted, and low. There's a full-width tail light signature stretching nearly 1.5 meters across the back. Adaptive, high-beam headlights with 64 independently controlled LED elements that track your field of vision and light the road without blinding oncoming drivers. The side glass is continuous and sweeping, hidden door handles. The whole car has the silhouette of a Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo's more aggressive electric native sibling, and the performance to match. Zeekr is a Geely brand, the same Geely that owns Volvo, and you feel that in the engineering. The 2024 model moved the entire car onto an 800-volt electrical architecture, which is a massive deal. Most mainstream EVs still run on 400-volt systems. 800 volts means you can charge faster, run more efficiently, and deliver power more precisely. The dual-motor AWD version carries a 95 kilowatt-hour Keilschenxing battery, an LFP chemistry pack that supports 5C charging. That means 10% to 80% in 11.5 minutes, not half an hour, not 20 minutes. 11.5 minutes for nearly 470 kilometers of range added. That is extraordinary. The top AWD performance configuration pushes a combined 536 horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque. The car hits 100 kilometers per hour in 3.8 seconds. The FR variant, the limited edition quad motor monster, produces over 1,200 horsepower, runs 0 to 100 in 2.02 seconds, and holds the world record for the fastest drift by an electric vehicle at 208 kilometers per hour. Let that sink in. Inside, the cabin is built around a 15-inch OLED central display, a 35.5-inch AR head-up display that floats navigation and driving information in augmented reality across your windscreen. Full Nappa leather with ventilation, heating, massage, air suspension, standard with multiple ride modes. The trunk, and this is one of the secret weapons of the shooting brake format, offers over 2,000 liters of combined cargo space, more than most mid-size SUVs, in a car that looks like a sports coupe. Pricing in China starts at the equivalent of roughly $37,000 for the entry-level configuration, ranging up to around $46,000 for the top trim. That puts it against the BMW i4, the Mercedes EQE, the Audi e-tron GT. And it doesn't just compete, it embarrasses them on technology density per dollar. Canadian importers are already working with gray market specialists to bring these in, and with the new quota framework, the pathway is cleaner than it's ever been. In Europe, the car is already sold officially. The compliance work exists. The regulatory bones are there. This is the entry point, and it's already this good. The Hongqi H6. Hongqi. Say the name slowly. Red flag. This is China's oldest luxury automobile brand, founded in 1958. Originally built to transport Chairman Mao and China's top officials. For decades, it existed in a rarefied world of state ceremony and formal motorcades. And then, in the last several years, the brand completely reinvented itself. And the H6 is one of the most interesting results of that reinvention. Because the H6 isn't what you'd expect from a brand that used to exclusively build rolling palaces for heads of state. The H6 is a mid-size fastback, a liftback sedan with coupe lines, a dual-tone body with a strong belt-line crease, and an interior that shows Hongqi has been paying close attention to what premium buyers actually want in a cabin. The front of the car features Hongqi's signature vertical grille design, framed by LED headlights that glow with a presence you don't get from the usual German options in this segment. Under the hood, the H6 is built around a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder in 2 states of tune. The high-powered version delivers 252 horsepower and 380 newton-meters of torque, paired with an 8-speed ASIN automatic transmission and front-wheel drive. The high-power version accelerates to 100 kilometers per hour in 6.8 seconds. There's also an optional CDC suspension system, continuous damping control, which reads road conditions in 2-millisecond intervals and adjusts shock absorber firmness in real time. In a $20-something thousand car. That's genuinely premium hardware. The interior punches above its weight class in a way that will confuse you if you're expecting a base-level experience. 253 color ambient lighting, Brembo brake calipers available as an option, full voice control integration, heated external mirrors, red Brembo calipers on a car that costs $25,000. The sport seats are integrated and supportive, and the trunk delivers 592 liters, which is serious family hauler territory in what looks from the outside like a driver's car. The 2024 Hongqi H6 starts at the equivalent of around $25,000 and tops out at around $33,000 in its highest trim. Compare that to a loaded Mazda 6, a mid-tier Acura TLX, or even a base BMW 3 Series. And you start to understand why Hongqi has been growing at 17% year over year. This is a car that brings red flag history, genuine German-sourced transmission hardware, and performance-tuned suspension to a price point that makes European luxury brands look like they're running a premium scam. For Canadian buyers looking for something that no one on the block has ever seen, something that carries genuine historical weight and modern engineering in equal measure, The H6 is arguably the most underrated car in this entire conversation. It drives well, it looks sharp, and it tells a story that a BMW 3 Series simply cannot. The Hongqi Tiangong 05. If the H6 is Hongqi, looking backward at its heritage while moving forward, the Tiangong 05 is Hongqi, looking straight into the future and not blinking. This is their new pure electric sedan built on the entirely new Tiangong platform, a platform designed from scratch, from the ground up, specifically for electric vehicles. And the first sedan they've built on it is striking. The Tiangong 05 launched in early 2025, and it was specifically designed to be the more accessible electric sedan in Hongqi's new energy lineup, the one that would actually move volume, that would actually get people into the brand. It starts at the equivalent of around $22,000 in China. For a car with these credentials, that number is almost offensive. Dimensions first: 4.82 meters long, nearly 2 meters wide, with a 2.9 meter wheelbase. This is a large car. The styling is fastback, a smooth, aerodynamic roofline leading into Y-shaped LED taillights at the rear, hidden door handles. The front features the iconic Hongqi vertical standing logo glowing in the center of the closed front fascia, framed by L-shaped LED headlight clusters with real visual drama. The drag coefficient sits at 0.213. That's excellent for a production sedan, and it's part of why the range numbers are what they are. And the range numbers deserve attention. The Tiangong 05 comes with two battery options: a 62 kilowatt-hour LFP pack, good for 550 kilometers of CLTC range, and an 85 kilowatt-hour LFP pack that extends that to 750 kilometers. Single electric motor, rear-wheel drive, 210 kilowatts. That's 282 horsepower. Top speed is 200 kilometers per hour. Fast charging brings either pack from 10 to 80% in 20 minutes. Inside, the Tiangong 05 does something that most production cars haven't had the courage to do. It removes the instrument cluster entirely. There's no traditional dashboard gauge pod in front of the driver. Instead, there's a floating 15.6-inch central display running Qualcomm Silicon, an optional 60-inch augmented reality head-up display that projects navigation and vehicle information directly onto the windscreen in a way that makes most competitor systems look like a children's toy. DeepSeek AI is integrated into the voice control stack. The steering wheel is a two-spoke design. The shift mechanism is mounted behind the wheel. The whole cockpit feels like something they designed by starting from scratch rather than by committee. The Tiangong 05 also features Hongqi's L2.9 intelligent driving system, 23 sensors, city-capable navigation on autopilot, full highway autonomy, 12 Dynaudio speakers optional, heated rear seats optional, front seats with 14-way power adjustment, heating, ventilation, and massage. This is what $22,000 buys in China in 2025. In Canada, with the new tariff framework and an established gray market community that knows exactly how to homologate and register these vehicles, the Tiangong 05 represents one of the clearest value propositions in the global automotive market. It genuinely does what a Tesla Model 3 does, with better interior tech, longer range, and a design that has actual visual identity instead of looking like every other anonymous sedan on the road. The BYD Yangwang U7. And now we shift registers entirely, because the first three cars we talked about were remarkable machines with exceptional value. The Yangwang U7 is something else. The Yangwang U7 exists to make you question what is even possible in an automobile. Yangwang is BYD's ultra-luxury sub-brand. The brand's other models include the U8, a full-size off-road SUV that can do tank turns and drive on 3 wheels after a blowout, and the U9 supercar, which lapped the Nürburgring and cost the equivalent of over $230,000 US dollars. The U7 is the sedan, and it starts at around $90,000 US dollars in China, which makes it the most affordable Yangwang vehicle, though that framing should tell you everything about the company's ambitions. The car launched in March 2025. The numbers that it arrived with were immediately controversial because they sounded invented. 4 electric motors, one at each wheel, combined output 960 kilowatts, that's 1,287 horsepower. Torque 1,584 Newton meters, equivalent to over 1,100 pound-feet. The car does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.9 seconds. Top speed 270 kilometers per hour. Carries a 135.5 kilowatt-hour battery, delivering 720 kilometers of CLTC range. And BYD has since filed regulatory documents for an updated version with a 150 kilowatt-hour LFP blade battery that would extend that to over 1,000 kilometers, a 1,000-kilometer range sedan with over 1,200 horsepower in 2026. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The U7 is built on BYD's E4 platform, an individual wheel drive architecture that allows each motor to receive its own torque command independently, enabling a level of chassis dynamics control that no hydraulic or conventional mechanical system can match. The suspension is called Daisaz-Z and doesn't use traditional shock absorbers, use linear actuators, essentially electric motors in place of passive dampers, that can respond in 5 milliseconds. 200 active adjustments per second, body height precision of 1 millimeter. If one tire blows, the system lifts the affected corner, stabilizes the chassis, and lets you continue driving on 3 wheels at reduced speed. That is not a marketing claim. That is engineered reality. The God's Eye driver assistance package, the U7, comes with the top-tier version as standard, runs 3 LiDAR sensors, 5 millimeter wave radars, 13 high-definition cameras, and twin NVIDIA Orin X chips, producing 508 TOPS of computing power. This is not a checkbox feature list. This is the hardware stack of a self-driving development platform, standard equipment in a production car. Inside, the U7 chooses between 4-seat and 5-seat configurations. The 4-seat version has rear occupants that would not be out of place on a private jet, 2 individual 12.8-inch entertainment screens in the rear, a mini refrigerator, fold-out tables, armrests with active temperature regulation, 23-speaker sound system. The front presents a 23.6-inch digital instrument display, a 12.8-inch OLED center screen, and a passenger screen, semi-aniline leather, carbon fiber trim, 20-way adjustable front seats. The car weighs around 3,000 kilograms. It is enormous, 5,265 millimeters long, nearly 2 meters wide, with a wheelbase of 3,160 millimeters. This is S-Class territory in physical dimensions, Porsche Taycan territory in performance, and BYD's proprietary technology throughout every system. The PHEV variant adds a Boxer 4-cylinder engine, which BYD claims is the first Boxer 4-cylinder ever used in a Chinese production car, mounted up front for its low profile, adding range and backup propulsion without compromising the flat floor interior layout. For the American market, this car effectively doesn't exist. The combination of tariffs, connected vehicle cybersecurity regulations, and the lack of any established U.S. compliance pathway means that accessing one involves extraordinary effort and cost. In Canada, the situation is meaningfully different. Gray market import specialists have experience bringing similar technology vehicles through Transport Canada's RVDB process. The compliance work is achievable. And while the Yangwang U7 at $90,000 isn't affordable in the conventional sense, compare it to a Porsche Taycan Turbo at $185,000, a Mercedes EQS at $110,000, or a BMW i7 at $120,000, and the proposition becomes genuinely interesting. This is a car that, if you walked up to it at a valet stand without knowing what you were looking at, would stop you cold. The presence is there. The technology is a generation ahead, and it's wearing a badge that most North Americans have never heard of. The BYD Fangchengbao Leopard 5. From the heavens of the U7, we descend back to Earth, but Earth of the extremely capable go anywhere, capable of rescuing a stuck yacht variety. The BYD Fangchengbao Leopard 5 is what happens when BYD decides to build a hardcore off-road machine using every advanced electrification tool in their arsenal. The result is something that the Land Rover Defender and Ford Bronco need to take seriously. Fangchengbao translates loosely to Formula Leopard in English. It's BYD's adventure and performance-oriented sub-brand, distinct from regular BYD, distinct from Yangwang. And the Leopard 5 is the car that launched the brand in late 2023. It arrived with the DMO platform, dual mode off-road, which is BYD's specialized plug-in hybrid architecture optimized specifically for severe off-road conditions, body-on-frame construction. That matters because it means real off-road credentials, not crossover theater. The numbers on the performance variants are wild. A 1.5-liter turbocharged engine combined with dual electric motors producing a combined 505 kilowatts. That's 677 horsepower. Peak torque, 760 newton meters. 0 to 100 in 4.8 seconds. In a body-on-frame, off-road SUV. An approach angle of 35 degrees, a departure angle of 32 degrees. 4 physical trailer anchor points standard, rated for a traction force of 32,000 newtons. A 2.5-ton towing capability on equipped versions. The range is one of the Leopard 5's most extraordinary features. Combined range of over 1,200 kilometers. Electric-only range up to 125 kilometers under CLTC conditions. The 31.8 kilowatt-hour Blade battery supports 100 kilowatt DC fast charging, 6 kilowatts of external discharge power, meaning you can run a camp kitchen, a fridge, power tools, or essentially anything you'd want in a serious overlanding build directly from the car's power output. The Leopard 5 becomes a generator. The exterior dimensions are significant. 4,890 millimeters long, 1,970 wide, 1,920 tall, with a 2,800 millimeter wheelbase. The body styling is unapologetically boxy and purposeful. Current matrix headlights with real aggression, a side-opening tailgate, an external spare tire carrier. The whole visual language says, I go where other cars cannot. The interior has 30 multi-dimensional storage compartments. With the rear seats folded, the flat cargo area extends to a sleeping length of 1.9 meters, meaning you can fit an actual double mattress inside, something BYD designed deliberately for overlanders who want their car to become their shelter. Top-tier versions include the Cloud P hydraulic active suspension system borrowed directly from the Yangwang U8, the $100,000 plus flagship off-roader, giving the Leopard 5 adjustable ride height and the ability to handle body roll and articulation in situations that would have standard trucks compromised. In China, the Leopard 5, in its basic configuration, starts at around $40,000 US. Top spec versions with the Cloud P suspension and full performance powertrain sit higher but remain dramatically under the pricing of Western equivalents. A loaded Ford Bronco Raptor, a Land Rover Defender 110 V8, Mercedes-AMG G63. All of these are within or above the $100,000 threshold. The Leopard 5 in max configuration likely costs half that, and off-road, it is genuinely competitive. For Canadian buyers, particularly those in British Columbia, Alberta, and the territories where serious off-road capability is not optional, it is a way of life, the Leopard 5 represents something genuinely new, a hybrid system that eliminates range anxiety in the wilderness, performance numbers that make other body-on-frame trucks look slow, and technology that has trickled down from a six-figure off-road machine directly into a $40,000 production truck. This one is coming north. It's only a matter of when. The Hongqi HS3, the sixth car in this conversation, is, in some ways, the most important one because it's the most accessible, the most likely to actually show up in a Canadian driveway, and the one that proves this isn't just a spectacle for wealthy enthusiasts. The Hongqi HS3 is a compact luxury crossover SUV. Subcompact, technically, though it's built on generous dimensions for its class, and it is Hongqi's entry point, the car that the brand has used to expand globally across the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and now Europe. It's a PHEV in its newest versions, with sub-$20,000 pricing in China that puts it in a segment traditionally owned by entry-level German crossovers. Look at the HS3 from the outside, and you see the full Hongqi design language applied at an accessible price point. The illuminated Hongqi vertical logo, flying wing-shaped daytime running lights, LED headlights with genuine drama, a strong shoulder line running the length of the body. The interior carries twin screens, a 12.6-inch infotainment display paired with a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, dual-zone automatic climate, ambient lighting. The 9H4M body structure uses 64% high-strength steel and 17% hot-formed steel. Those are figures that premium European brands quote as selling points, and Hongqi builds them in at this price. The PHEV version, which launched in China at the equivalent of around $19,000, pairs a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine with an electric motor and an 18.4 kilowatt-hour LFP battery. Electric-only range, up to 100 kilometers, depending on trim. Combined range, over 1,400 kilometers, 0 to 100 in 7.6 seconds. For the PHEV, top speed of 190 kilometers per hour. Fuel consumption with the battery depleted is around 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers, figures that compact hybrids from Toyota and Honda have taken years to achieve. The gasoline version tops out with a 2-liter turbocharged engine, delivering 252 horsepower and 380 newton-meters of torque through an 8-speed ASIN transmission. Available with all-wheel drive, 0 to 100 in under 6 seconds in top trim. The standard driver assistance suite includes autonomous emergency braking, blind spot detection, lane keeping, adaptive cruise control, and rear collision warning. The car comes with a 7-year warranty in markets where it's officially sold. What makes the HS3 remarkable is not that it's some jaw-dropping technological showcase. What makes it remarkable is that it's extremely good, competitively priced, and wearing a badge that carries 60-plus years of history as China's most prestigious automotive nameplate. When your grandfather drove to important meetings, he was driven in a Hongqi. Today, you can put one in your garage for less than the price of a loaded Honda CR-V. And in Canada, where average transaction prices for new vehicles crossed 46,000 Canadian dollars, where the cheapest luxury crossovers typically start somewhere between 40 and 50,000. The HS3 at its import price, factoring in the 6% tariff and compliance costs, could land at a price point that makes it a genuine option for regular buyers, not just enthusiasts chasing forbidden fruit. So let's step back from the individual vehicles and look at what's actually happening here. These 6 cars represent 3 different brands: Zeekr, Hongqi, and BYD's Fangchengbao and Yangwang sub-brands. And they span a price range from around $20,000 to nearly $100,000. They span technology from conventional internal combustion with luxury trimmings all the way to 4-motor individual wheel drive systems with millisecond response electromagnetic suspension. They span use cases from daily city commuting to a 1,000-kilometer wilderness expedition. The common thread isn't the technology or the price. The common thread is that every single one of these cars represents a level of value, specification, and sophistication that Western automakers have not prepared an answer for. BMW's response to the Zeekr 001 is a car that costs $30,000 more with less technology. Mercedes' response to the Yangwang U7 is a car that costs twice as much without individual wheel drive or electromagnetic suspension. Ford's response to the Leopard 5 is a car with less range, less power, and less integrated technology. And none of the European brands have anything positioned against the Hongqi HS3 at its price point that isn't either significantly cheaper in quality or significantly more expensive. This has been the reality in China for several years now. It's been the reality in Europe since 2023. It's beginning to be the reality in Canada in 2026. And in the United States, the fortress holds for now. Tariffs stacked on top of connected vehicle regulations, stacked on top of political pressure, stacked on top of institutional inertia. The wall is high and it is thick, but walls have a tendency to erode when people on the other side of them are simply building better things. What Canada has done, whether by design or by pragmatic necessity, is create a test market for the scenario that American automakers fear most: Chinese vehicles competing on merit in a sophisticated Western consumer market. With 6% tariffs and safety compliance pathways opening up, brands like BYD and Geely and FAW have every incentive to invest in making their cars work on Canadian roads. And once the compliance infrastructure is established, once dealership networks form, once word spreads about what these vehicles actually are versus what they've been caricatured as, the dynamic changes. The people in Ottawa who made this deal are not naive. The people in Detroit who called it problematic are not wrong to be concerned. And the Canadians who show up to a Chinese EV event in 2026 and sit inside a Zeekr 001 or a Hongqi Tiangong 05 for the first time are going to experience something that resets their expectations permanently. Because you cannot unsee this. Once you sit in a car with a 60-inch augmented reality head-up display and a DeepSeek AI voice assistant and an electromagnetic suspension system that adjusts 200 times per second, and you look at the price tag, once you feel that combination, you will never look at a $45,000 German sedan the same way again. That is the real story. Not a trade deal, not a geopolitical realignment, not a quota system negotiated over canola oil. The real story is that the car is just better, and the world is slowly, irrevocably starting to notice. So here's where we land. 6 cars, each extraordinary in its own right, a shooting break from a Volvo-adjacent company that charges to 80% in under 12 minutes, a sedan wearing the crest of China's oldest luxury brand, a minimalist electric fastback with a 60-inch AR head-up display and no dashboard, a 1,287 horsepower sedan with electromagnetic suspension borrowed from magnetic levitation research, a body-on-frame, off-road hybrid truck that can run your campsite for a weekend on battery power alone, and a sub-$20,000 compact crossover from the brand that once transported Chinese heads of state. In the United States, these are ghosts, technically blocked, politically inconvenient, regulatory no man's land. North of the border, the door is open. Canada just changed the rules, and the cars are coming. Game over for the old playbook. The question now isn't whether Chinese cars are good enough for North America. The question is whether North American automakers are good enough to compete with them.